Hi guys, I'm Nate from Recap Now. Today, I'm going to recap a 2014 comedy fantasy movie called The Cobbler. A cobbler stumbles upon a magical sewing machine that allows him to step into the lives of his customers, only to discover that walking in someone else's shoes may put him in more peril than he can bear. At a cobbler's shop, a group of men debate how Gergerman is driving them out of business by raising rents and threatening their families. As a result, they seek help from the cobbler, Pinchas. However, the man points out that Gergerman is not his customer, thus he can't do anything about it. This prompts one of the men to admit that they stole the greedy man's boots. Pinchas utilizes a unique stitching machine on the shoes. While he's working, his son Herschel approaches and inquires about the machine. Pinchas explains that it was given to his father by an angel and should only be used on exceptional occasions. He tells how, long ago, during the winter, a vagabond came to their cobbler shop, and his father took him in, fed him, and repaired his shoes. The beggar was gone the next morning, but the stitching machine remained behind. Decades later, Pinchas's great-grandson, Max, establishes the cobbler shop he inherited. While taking a break, he notices the stunning Taryn exiting the flat nearby, which leaves him speechless. However, her boyfriend, Emiliano, joins her. Jimmy, the owner of the barbershop next door, notices him glancing at them and wonders if Max has any romance in his life. When the man replies no, Jimmy believes he's better than Emiliano, but the cobbler counters that the younger man is wealthier because he has his own driver. He then suggests that he find out what he wants to do, but Jimmy believes he is destined to be a cobbler because his family has been one for generations. Max retreats into his shop, uninterested in discussing this anymore. Later, Carmen approaches Max to talk about her organization's responsibility to maintain the Lower East Side. Her organization intends to stop real estate developers from displacing middle-class citizens to establish luxury neighborhoods. They accomplish this by either buying out the current renters or boosting their rent. Hearing this, Max wonders how much he'll get for selling the shop. Carmen, on the other hand, urges that people like him stay, despite the fact that he refuses. Carmen takes him outside and shows him how his shop is integrated into the city, convincing him that their land is more than simply a playground for the wealthy. With that, she asks him to sign her petition and invites him to a rally tonight to support Mr. Solomon, an elderly man being evicted from his house. Before departing, she offers him a protest flyer. Instead of attending the demonstration, Max returns home to care for his sick mother, Sarah. The next day, a bandit named Leon makes Max clean his shoes while claiming that his watch collection is more valuable than the establishment. He then drops off another pair of shoes, instructing the worker to repair them by tonight. Max claims they close at 6, but Leon insists on retrieving his shoes later. While working on it, Max's stitching machine fails, so the cobbler goes to the basement to locate a replacement. Instead, he discovers Pinchas's machine. Jimmy checks on him while he works on the sneaker. When he saw the messy basement, he remembered telling Max's father to get rid of the garbage, but he couldn't throw anything away. Max bitterly adds that his father abandoned his family instead. Max waits late that night for Leon to bring up his sneakers. Out of boredom, he puts on his customer's shoes and, to his amazement, discovers that he has transformed into the thug. Panicked, he hurriedly removes his shoes, perplexed as to what transpired. Max closes the business to avoid any potential witnesses before putting the shoes on again and morphing into Leon. He subsequently gets another pair of shoes to test if it happens again, but it doesn't. Confused, he compares the shoes and realizes that the stitcher is responsible for his metamorphosis. He verifies this by running the machine on other shoes and confirms it when he transforms into one of his customers. Max enthusiastically toys with this until he turns into a corpse because the shoe's owner died. The next morning, Max is more excited to go to work. Later, a mysterious man comes into Jimmy's store and lingers without asking for a haircut. The man then walks into the cobbler's shop and takes off his shoes, transforming back into Max. This testing validates his ability to trick anyone with his disguises. As the day progresses, more clients drop off their shoes for repair. Max disguises himself by walking into Chinatown wearing one man's shoes and discovers that he can replicate the person's voice and accent. Next, he goes to a restaurant as someone else, then returns to his normal appearance in the restroom to avoid paying. While walking, he notices a wealthy man drive his expensive automobile into valet parking. With an idea in mind, Max morphs into Leon and steals the wealthy man's shoes. This allows him to borrow the man's automobile and happily drive down the highway. After a fun-filled day, Max returns to his mother and tells her he had the nicest day. He then asks Sarah whether she ever wishes she could be someone else, but she responds no, since she is content to be his mother. Instead, she merely wants to see his father again. With this in mind, Max returns his father's old shoes to the business the next day. Taryn removes her boyfriend's shoes before he can begin working on it. This alters Max's intentions for the night, as he pretends to be Emiliano. He goes to a club and captures the attention of the ladies. Soon, a woman expresses an interest in him, and the two take a cab to his house for some privacy. However, when Max reveals to living with his mother, she deserts him. The man then returns to the business, but runs into Emiliano. Fortunately, he removes one shoe at a time, keeping the man from seeing his replica. As Emiliano exits his apartment, Max comes up with another proposal. Returning to his flat disguised as Emiliano, he discovers Taryn in the shower. She welcomes him inside, and he is astounded by the woman's attractiveness. When the woman begs him to join her, Max rushes to undress, but understands that removing his shoes will cause him to shift back. He hurries away. At home, he finds Sarah watching the television, where Carmen discusses the demonstration. Max admires her enthusiasm as she speaks about the local families. The following day, Max runs into Carmen as she delivers groceries to an elderly home. She uses this opportunity to ask him if he can persuade his father to sign their petition, but he admits that his father departed years ago. Carmen sympathizes with him and confesses that hers has also departed, but she is focused on moving on. Before departing, she invites Max to stop by her committee's office and get involved in safeguarding their community. Max is drawn to the woman and uses his magic shoes to watch her, but he can't bring himself to talk to her. That night, Max gathers his bravery before putting on his father's shoes and morphing into Abraham. After ensuring that it works, he makes a nice meal for his mother and urges her to dress up. Soon, he returns home as Abraham, bringing Sarah joy as she embraces her husband. Max achieves his mother's request by enjoying dinner and dancing together. He then tucks his mother into bed and says goodnight to his father before removing his shoes. The next morning, Max checks on his mother, but discovers that Sarah has died in her sleep. Days later, Jimmy approaches Max during Sarah's wake. He assures him that his mother would have loved everything he'd done for her, but Max is upset because he was the only one she had, and he can't even afford to purchase her a lovely headstone. Jimmy offers to pay for it, but Max queries why he would when he owes him nothing. The barber then guarantees that it will be better soon, so he should avoid doing anything he would regret. Max, however, believes it is too late for such advice and departs. When the business reopens, Leon eventually returns to get his shoes. He complains that the shop has been closed all week, so Max casually says that his mother died. The customer makes brief remarks about this before demanding his sneakers. However, he does not have the claim ticket, so Leon threatens Max with returning his shoes by tomorrow. Angered, Max follows Leon around in disguise and sees the thug's heinous crimes. He employs several disguises to study him and becomes intrigued as the guy enters a black vehicle. With the man gone, Max disguises himself as Leon and enters his apartment to discover that the man's girlfriend, Macy, is leaving him for hitting her. After she leaves, Max hunts for Leon's watch collection, but instead uncovers his stockpile of guns. He then unintentionally stuns himself with a stun gun, knocking him unconscious. When he awakens, he rushes away, only to discover Leon at the door. The thug promptly chokes his replica, but Max still has the stun pistol and uses it on him, causing him to collapse. Leon awakens to find himself chained and facing Max, who is disguised as a young guy. He demands his collection, and when the man refuses, he disguises himself in another shape, frightening Leon. As a result, the thug tells him the watch's location. Before Max can leave, Leon's associates arrive. and the thug explains that they are ready to collect a significant quantity of money for a job. Max, blinded by greed, pretends to be Leon and joins his accomplices. However, the thugs first take him to a warehouse, where Leon's gang beats Patrick, a thief. Max, terrified, stops them from killing the man and retreats to the restroom. Panicked, Max devises a strategy and returns quickly, ordering Leon's gang to release Patrick, much to the men's amazement. The goons then drive him to Elaine Greenewalt's estate, where she gives him money to get rid of renters in the neighborhood. Max is shocked and returns to Leon's flat, scheming to retain the money and then release the thug. However, Leon has fled and beaten him up, so Max hastily removes his stilettos, startling the man as he transforms. Leon still tries to grasp him, and in the ensuing fight, Max accidentally stabs him with the stiletto, killing him. He leaves in horror, leaving his belongings behind. The cobbler considers the events of the previous night and eventually decides to turn himself in. He brings the officers to Leon's house, but when they arrive, the area is immaculate. Even the suitcase and money he left behind are gone. The officers leave, believing he is dreaming things. To his amazement, Max discovers his bag in his shop, together with Leon's money and watches. Max walks out, terrified that something beyond his control is happening, intending to relinquish the objects. Jimmy, on the other hand, interrupts him, remarking on how the man has been acting out since his mother died. He also mentions that Max's father was the same, which surprises the young guy. Jimmy reveals that Abraham ran into difficulty and had to flee to protect his family. Max chastises his pal for not telling him sooner, and Jimmy responds that his father made him vow not to. Max, enraged, pulls him away and departs. Max delivers the money to Elaine in disguise, stating Leon sent him since he is unable to complete the task. The woman, on the other hand, is furious because she would lose even more money if Leon does not complete his duty. With that, she commands her thugs to knock him unconscious. Max awakens in the back seat of a car as Elaine's thugs transport him out of town to ensure his disappearance. As they do so, the men talk about starting a fire tomorrow night. Max hurriedly removes one of the shoes from his backpack and disguises himself as the dead. This causes the goons to smash the car, freeing him. A group of children discovers the crash, but as Max emerges, they flee, believing he is a zombie. Fearful of the recent incidents, Max covers up the stitching machine the next day, vowing never to use it again. He then apologizes to Jimmy for yesterday. Later, Max accidentally spills his cola on the flyer Carmen gave him. He sees it and thinks Elena is attempting to eliminate Mr. Solomon. He rushes to alert Carmen that Elena's thugs will set fire to the elderly man's flat. Carmen recognizes Elaine as the owner of Mr. Solomon's apartment building and believes him. She leads him to the apartment complex and informs him that Mr. Solomon is the only tenant left. Once he's gone, Elaine intends to sell the entire block for a fortune. Carmen introduces Max to Mr. Solomon and tells him about potential dangers to his life. Even still, the man refuses to leave. He's lived in the building for 45 years, raising his family there, and he plans to die there. Max, refusing to let him be killed, asks for his shoe size. Soon, Max disguises himself as Mr. Solomon and meets Elaine. He claims he will leave the premises for $100,000 and a bus ticket to Chicago, where his daughter lives. Elaine promises to have her thugs accompany him to Chicago to assure his departure. The following evening, Elaine's thugs, Brian and Jeffrey, pick up Mr. Solomon, who instructs them to leave their shoes outside before entering the apartment. When they leave, the thugs' shoes are gone. Hours later, Jeffrey writes that Mr. Solomon has left. They had no idea. Max has once again donned men's shoes and disguised himself. Max returns to Mr. Solomon's residence as Leon. Jeffrey notices him and follows him inside, only to discover Brian imprisoned. When the captive tells him about something behind him, Jeffrey looks away, only for Max to use Leon's stun gun on him while dressed as Brian. In the morning, Max disguises himself as Jeffrey and confirms that Elaine is on her way to see her customer. In truth, he has Jeffrey tied, while Brian transports the real Mr. Solomon to Chicago. Elaine comes and finds Carmen exiting the building, claiming she had just visited Mr. Solomon. Just as the woman is leaving, Elaine's client comes, and she rushes to get rid of the elderly renter. During this time, Brian leads Mr. Solomon to the Chicago bus terminal, but the thug is captured by police, while the elderly man walks away smiling. Elaine rushes to the apartment and discovers Max disguised as Mr. Solomon. He maintains that her thugs lied about taking him away, infuriating the woman even further. When the man refuses to leave, Elaine threatens to torch the building with him inside. She'll then assassinate his daughter in Chicago. To her amazement, a news reporter and a cameraman emerge from the living room, having captured the woman's threats. Elaine is soon imprisoned, and Carmen goes to the cobbler to drop off her boots. She explains that Mr. Solomon wants to thank him for rescuing his home, and she wonders how the man managed to dupe Elaine. The man refuses to explain, so Carmen simply invites him to supper, which he readily accepts. Max eventually visits Macy, disguised as a very pale Leon. He hands her the thug's watches, instructing her to sell them so she can live the life she deserves. When he exits, some thugs force him into a car, where Patrick awaits, seeking vengeance on Leon and his group. Before they can leave, another vehicle collides with theirs. Max subsequently awakens in Jimmy's shop, where the man serves him pickles, explaining that it helps them change. This surprises the man, who wonders how he learned of the alterations. Jimmy adds that he was the one who disposed of Leon's body and proof. He then removes his shoes, revealing that he is truly Abraham. Max is stunned and embraces his father before scolding him for not being there for him and his mother. The father claims he had to disappear to keep them safe. Abraham then thinks that his kid is ready and leads him to the basement, where the father has concealed a collection of shoes passed down through generations. The father acknowledges that walking in another man's shoes is a significant responsibility, but he believes his son has learnt this. With that, he transfers the collection to Max. Max suddenly breaks down and apologizes for not caring for his mother. Abraham reassures his kid that he did well and embraces him. To add to the surprise, Abraham reveals that he owns a concealed luxury car with his own driver. He says that he refurbished the barbershop after buying out Jimmy, who is currently in the Caribbean. As the father and son enjoy their drive home, Abraham mentions that there are other tradesmen with similar skills, so he promises Max to show him everything and begins the story of how the miraculous sewing machine wound up in their household. Please do hit that like button if you enjoyed the recap. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell for more movie recaps. Stay tuned for our next cinematic adventure, and until then, happy watching.